Hello and welcome back to another episode of the InnerFight podcast. My name is Marcus Smith. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are talking, well, maybe you think from the title we're talking all about real estate, but actually it's more about culture, the culture of real estate, and more than that, how to build a culture, how to build a team, and how to effectively do something meaningful. My guest has been a client and a friend since 2020, since the pandemic. And we've had some amazing open conversations. As you'll see or hear in the show, see if you're watching the video version, he puts everything out there. There's not much hidden and he delivers everything in a super nice way. So it's always been a great conversation and that was absolutely no different today. This week's show announcements, very straightforward. There are two pieces of news I want to bring you this week. One of them you've heard before. You're probably a bit bored of me rattling on about this one, but it's super important. The CrossFit Open begins. It is here. The first workout, by the time this podcast is released, will have been released, and it will take place. We'll be hosting the open workout Saturday morning between 10 to 11:30. Well, however long it takes, depends if the workout's a bit longer, it might go a bit longer, but we will be starting at 10. Therefore, there is only an 8:30 class on Saturday morning. There is no 8 and 9 a.m. class like normal. There's one 8:30 class. We'll be done by 9:30, warm up and the open, which is this week hosted by Sandro and Andy. They'll be taking you all through it, making sure everyone is safe, having fun, scaled appropriately. If you're worried about the open, worry not, go back. We did a whole series through Mondays in January and also the chat a few weeks ago that I had with Andy. Come down, support, grab a coffee. If you like to watch people work out and basically just absolutely end themselves, this is a brilliant opportunity to do that. 10 a.m. Saturday, this Saturday, and I'll remind you next week, but for the next 3 Saturdays as well. Unfortunately, I won't be there on Saturday because we'll be racing at this week's second show announcement, which is the X-Terra Triathlon happening up in Musseldown this weekend. A little bit harder to get to support, so if no one shows up to support us, absolutely no problem. There's half a dozen of us going up there. It is a triathlon with a difference. All triathlons are a little bit different, but this one is very different. It's 1,500 meter swim, 30K mountain bike into a 10K trail run. This sport has been bubbling away in the background for a little while, or this format of the sport of triathlon has been bubbling away in the background for a little while. Some of you that listen to the InnerFight Endurance podcast may remember Tom talking about it last year. He raced in this race and he also, through doing quite well, qualified for, I think he came second, qualified for the World Championships, which were in Italy last year, along with another one of our clients who was recently also on the InnerFight Endurance podcast, Hamed Al-Gandhi. Great show. You should go and listen to that one as well. Long story short, we're up there this weekend. It is an up-and-coming version of triathlon. It's a lot different. There's a lot more variables, a lot more that can go right, and a lot more can go wrong. We'll update you next week if it goes right and if it goes wrong with how it went. That's it for this week's show announcements. Thanks a lot for listening to the show. Have a great weekend or a great week. Let's get into the show. This is episode number 882 of the InnerFight podcast. Building best real estate company in the world with Luke Remington. Enjoy the show.
How long do you take on average preparing?
Depends. Someone like you, I need more time.
No, you don't.
Mate, I've got a whole list of notes.
Fuck's sake. But the nice thing is you give me loads of time to prepare for stuff and give me all the questions you're going to ask so I can...
I don't actually have any. Let's start.
Because you just said to me you're going to make my palms sweat.
Luke Remington, Wales' chances of winning the Six Nations at the bookies at the moment is 780 to 1. How much would you put on them? Come on, let's start there.
Contrary to popular belief, I'm not Welsh. Okay, so we'll just put this.
It's awful.
Even at the track this morning, someone said, shouted Wales. I was born in Solihull in the West Midlands in the UK, right, the heart of Birmingham. I lived in Wales. We're 780 to 1. Doesn't look good at the moment, mate, does it? It doesn't. No, my mum's Irish and I have an Irish passport, so I'm going to jump into that boat for
back in the Irish. So we're better off to keep the money in your game, mate. Real estate. How did you get into real estate?
It was a funny one, Marcus. I'd finished school. I'd come out with reasonable grades. Believe me, I'm not intelligent in the slightest. And I'm sure anyone that has a 5-10 minute conversation can see I'm not the most articulate, but I could work hard. Finished school, and I saw my sister and so many people spending a huge amount of money, getting loans, worried about paying these loans back in the future, coming out with degrees that were probably they were not going to go into that profession, paying back these over 10, 20 years, complaining about it, and probably spending a lot more time in the student union than in the lecture hall. And it was surprising that a 16, 17-year-old is thinking of this, but it was actually on my mind at the time. So I don't know what night it was, there used to be a kickabout where you used to have all the lads from different parts of the town that would meet and we'd play football. And this guy turned up in a BMW, a really nice BMW 325, I remember it. And I was like, what's that guy do? He's an estate agent. He owns an estate agency. I'm like, okay. So from that moment, I was like, that's what I want, one of those cars. So played football, and then I started speaking to him after. His name is Dominic Subiani. I think you might know his brother Robert.
Rob.
So I had a chat with Dom. He then put me on to he said, turn up, let's have a chat. Let's meet in the office. Turned up. And I think at that time, I'm going to say it's probably 200 quid a week. Okay.
All right.
As a junior, that would have been in 1997, and literally first day, go in, I think I had to make tea and coffee for 70 to 80 people. I was given 1,000 envelopes where I had to lick the stamp and put them up. My tongue was bleeding at the end of the day. And it wasn't probably what I thought it was going to be, but nothing is at the start, is it, right? And so often in life, things aren't, and you've got to go through the shit. So it was basically the BMW 325 vision. That's what I want.
Wow.
And that's how I'm going to get it.
It's interesting that, mate, because I think as we grow up, well, in the era that you and I grew up, toy cars were for the boys and dolls were for the girls.
Right.
And I think that started something in our subconscious that was like cars.
Yeah.
And boys are always into cars.
Yeah.
And when that car pulled up in that car park that day, that clicked a trigger for you that's success.
Temby, which Tom Walker will know better than anyone probably, there's not a huge amount of fancy cars going around town. We're not in Mayfair in London, right? But yeah, what other triggers were there? I suppose you could see someone, you could look at your friends and your family that have got big houses, and maybe subconsciously there'd be aspirations, but you wouldn't. I'm sure when I was growing up, I had some wealthy family, and you'd see the big houses and you'd see the swimming pools or the tennis courts, maybe thinking, I'd like a bit of this, but it's so far away. But the car isn't too far away, is it? It's like reaching distance, whether it's a loan or whether whatever. But yeah, that's how it all started.
Do you ever think about that? Do you ever think about, like, 'cause it's quite a material start point, isn't it? Like, a car got me into this industry that I've now spent 25 years of my life in. I don't. It got me into it because I saw there was the electrician playing football, there was the plumber playing football, there was the builder playing football, there was the landlord playing football. There's a whole host of people. What else was there for Luke to do that wasn't that didn't need a degree? Yeah.
Okay. You can go down that electrician, and I had no issues with doing it, maybe going to college and studying it. And to be honest, it's something that today I would even advise my son to do. Yes, you're not going to say it's a glamorous job, and you're probably not going to puff your chest out at the dinner table with your friends and family saying I'm an electrician, but it's a bloody good skill job, and there's always work. And when I left Wales 15 years ago, they were shouting for them. They're still shouting for them now, aren't they?
It's funny, when I was back in the UK over Christmas, one of my cousins, he's been an electrician his whole life, and he pulled up at my house in one of the brand new Land Rovers, black, really pimping. And Holly's like, who's just pulled up?
Exactly. But we're going back to the car as well, aren't we? Right? It's always the car. That's like, okay, we can summarize how well they're doing or not doing by the car. As stupid as it sounds, because you could have financed it to, of course, especially where we are now in Dubai, right?
In Dubai.
This is what goes on. So it was just something, Marcus, that, you know, I needed to find something. I needed to go into something that I could see a career in. People talk about real estate, and, you know, they talk about that's how they make money, and you could go in stocks and shares and all this stuff. But real estate seems to be the one that maybe you heard your grandparents talk about, your father talks about it. Everyone talks about real estate. Yeah. So real estate, let's have a crack at it.
It's interesting, isn't it? The British dream is literally, as you said, to have a half decent car and to have a solid mortgage, which means a nice, in some cases, a nice house, but always means sweats about interest rates.
It is, and it's crazy because, you know, even speaking to friends now, the goal is to pay off the mortgage, to get the mortgage clear. But it was the same going back 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. It's not changed. Yeah. And this is talking about the interest rates. It's freakish that interest rates have been discussed at such length in every media and in every news channel in the UK. People are talking about it probably more than the gas and electricity prices. Yet out here, they're not even discussed. We're pegged to the dollar. Yeah. We've had massive interest rate rises. Yes, people are going to have been on fixed terms and all different kinds of things, but it's not been mentioned. Yeah. It's just two different worlds that we live within. One's affected and one's not. Yeah. But the dream of, you know, owning your house, paying off your mortgage and kind of relaxing and saying, okay, now if I want to do a few hours less in my job, I can do so. It's it's clearing it and moving on.
8 years ago, with two lads that you work with.
10 years ago.
Is it 10 years?
10-year anniversary, yeah.
Is it?
10 years in June, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit behind. It's actually quite hard to find information out about you guys online.
We did. Is it?
To a certain extent, yeah.
Okay, maybe I need to speak to the marketing department about that.
No, someone's getting shot.
Yeah, it was something that we had our 10-year anniversary. Whenever you're driving down any road in Dubai, you'll see, I think I saw We Sell Any Car 10-year anniversary, and I saw this 10-year anniversary, this 20-year anniversary. And some people really want to put out there that their birthday and they're proud. For us, it was 10 years, but we've got a game plan. And yeah, it's nice to do 10 years, but we would put it in people's face. Yeah. Do we think everyone's going to really be that excited that a real estate company's been going for 10 years? People hate us. Why do they don't want to know we're 10 years old? Let's be honest. Yeah, they hate us. It's like going and saying Westminster have just celebrated they hate politicians as well. Yeah. Don't celebrate our birthdays. There's nothing to celebrate. So we're 10 years, yeah. So there was James and Simon, who I met in 2012. Yeah. And that came about because it just got to a stage. I was in my early 30s in that same company that I met the guy with the BMW 325. So I've been with him since, and I got on very well with him, and he treated me really well, and I learned a huge amount from him. From 1997 to 2012. I was then buying into that partnership. I was getting, I didn't think probably a fair deal, what I felt that I was worth at that stage and what I'd put into that business. And an opportunity came to come to Dubai, and I had an interview, and it was one of those interviews that as soon as I finished the interview, I've never worked anywhere else. Okay, so I haven't got lots of experience of interview techniques or this stuff, but it was one of those interviews that as soon as I got off the interview, I was like, I've got that job. I know I've got it. But I didn't realise that any Tom, Dick and Harry could actually go into real estate in Dubai. So it's not difficult. So it actually won something that I didn't realise everyone wins. Came to Dubai, and then 2012 met James and Simon, who James was sat opposite me. Simon was on the other side of James. We were within 5 years of each other. We had a goal individually because we weren't a team. We were working, James and I were working in Arabian ranches. Simon was off plan. Simon had been here a lot longer than James and I. He'd been here about 2005. Was a bit younger than us. Had cemented quite a good name for himself in the off-plan markets. And we just didn't feel that things were working out as well as they could do. So we basically sat down. I think it was some Lebanese restaurant down in the marina. And we're like, should we start a business? And that's how it started. There wasn't a huge amount, as much as I hate to say it, there wasn't a huge amount of thought.
Really?
There wasn't, no.
Because Simon, and we were going to get Simon here as well, but he would drown out both of us, which is saying something, because I think both of us probably talk quite a lot. But James seems very calculated. Simon's at the complete, and this is from an outsider looking in, Simon's
100%.
like just fly by the seat of his pants. Everything comes up good in the end, and he's such a nice guy that it does. And you kind of sit in the middle.
Yeah.
But I would have thought you and James, your personalities would be a little bit more conservative and calculated. That there would have had to have been a plan, but there wasn't. It's difficult to answer it honestly, because I don't think there was. Wow.
And I'd love to, like we were talking before about, I can say all these things about how we built the business and the planning and, all the... I don't think there actually was.
Amazing.
We had a vision. We'd done real estate. We knew we were pretty good at what we did. We were in a company that probably at that time there was 100 brokers, and I would say the three of us were in the top 5.
Wow.
We were doing good money. That was 2012. So we were in a good market. The wave was behind us till about end of 2014, beginning of 2015. So there wasn't a plan. The plan from what individually, we probably had a plan.
Right.
We probably knew individually that we were pretty hard workers. James and I, for sure, maybe.
Simon works
slightly.
in all areas.
He works in a slightly different way, doesn't he? In his own unique way, you know. And that's probably how the trio
100%.
has worked, because we are so different. But I think you're correct in what you're saying. I would probably be that closer to James' side, that would probably be more conservative, more planning, more discussions, more debates we would probably have, constructive debates, whereas Simon might just make a decision just on and then pushes you into something. But maybe you needed that because our two opinions were, well, James, where are we going? We're too similar. What is it, this way or this way? And then Simon will just be, let's do it this way. And you'd be like, any reason? No, just let's do it. And then we go that way, and then it works.
He gives you that confidence as well. That's what I always like about him. It'll work out. And it always does, really. Or for the most part, he's like, we'll just crack on. And if we keep cracking on and we take the work ethic that you've spoken about and the fact that you guys were top performers in your previous company, then the history's behind. It's going to be good. I'm sure he's probably done some things to you that you've gone, oh, mate. I don't
think he has, to be honest,
there
Marcus. And again,
yeah.
I'm not just saying this for the sake of a podcast and a video, but don't think there has been many things that, of course, look, there's been some storms.
For sure.
But nothing that you're like, we can get through it. You know, we signed on an office. I think we signed on it about 2 months before COVID hit, before we knew about COVID. We'd given checks to EMAR. It was our biggest expansion plan. And we sat with Simon, and he's like, well, look, what's the worst that can happen? We change these officers around, we give this one back, we take this one, and it'll work out. And you're like, yeah, but we've got checks out, and if checks bounce out here, it's going to be a problem. It'll all work out. COVID won't last, it'll go.
Is that what he said?
Something like that. James and I are like shaking and fearing and like, what's life going to do? And like, what's the contingency plan? In fact, I think I discussed about, look, guys, worst case scenario, I'll remortgage the house.
Wow.
So that's what I'd actually said. So I was in a fortunate position that I'd actually saved and paid off the mortgage. And I thought, like, I'll remortgage it. The problem is with remortgaging the house, with the bills that we had in the company, remortgaging the house is only going to make the business survive for a couple of months.
Yeah.
We're in an industry that the business will survive longer than the employee because the employee's on a commission-only basis. So if the employees aren't making the money, they're going to be gone. So we can still pay the electricity and the DWA, but the employees they're gone. So without the employees, then there's no one who's buying and selling.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I'd love to say that, you know, we're all this big process and we brought people in to advise us and start it. And, you know, over the last, God, I don't know. I think at the moment there's probably somewhere in the region of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 companies in Dubai. 100% increase in companies opening in the last year. Some good, some bad, some ugly. And it's all.
Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think we're in a company that we're doing well in, 3 of us are the top 5 best performing sales broker, real estate broker, sales guys, whatever you want to refer to yourselves as. We're going into a market which is volatile and to all intents is saturated. Maybe it's not, but there's so much competition. Like, how do you start to place yourself as what I guess what I'm saying, mate, is what you said vision a few times. What was the vision that you 3 had?
There's no end to the story. There's no end to the story. The story keeps changing. And that's what the story's always changed. We have a game plan. The game plan's always 5 years in advance.
Right.
So the game plan today in 2024 goes to 2029. We know that we need this much office space to accommodate this many people in order to do this many sales, and this many sales will get us this much turnover.
Right.
We understand that. And we understand then the P&L to understand the net. That it's always changing, and it has to adapt and it has to change because of market conditions. I didn't realize that there was going to be a war in Eastern Europe, and then we're going to have a load of people coming in that was going to drive prices up, and we then reassessed and we changed it and we do it. It's always changing, Marcus, and you know, the vision from us is we feel we're still at a good age. I'm 42. James is coming at 45 this year. Simon's 38. We still believe we've got time to go and to keep pushing. We work bloody hard, and I think that's probably my biggest issue. And you will know as my life coach and personal coach and everything that I have a personal problem that I've got to be the first in and the last to leave. And that was even a thing going back to Tenby, where I was working. I remember working on the high street in Tenby, and we had this office, and the nights draw in, it get dark, and and there used to be a pub, the Hope and Anchor used to be about 100 yards down from my office, and people would knock on my window and they'd be looking at time being like, it's 10 o'clock, what are you doing there? And there's no one else there. The boss isn't there. There's no one else around. But it's like, if you put in the hard work, you will get the results. Some people need to work harder than others because others are going to have more talent or gift or whatever it may be. And that's what we felt is we're young, we're willing to put in the graft, and the story keeps changing. Brokers are, and going back to your point, companies are opening up, but we like storms because it weeds out the competition.
Yeah.
If the market today, which I don't think for 1 minute it will, I honestly don't, and I get asked it, and I haven't got a crystal ball, but I would
going
buy
back to 780 to 1 with Wales winning the Six Nations.
There's more chance of Wales winning the Six Nations than there's less chance of that actually. But there's no chance. But there's no chance of the market at the moment changing. Okay. And there's brokerages starting up. But if things do slow down, it's good for us because it weeds out the competition. And we've put a lot of systems in place where we train people, we give them a good brand, we give them an awesome culture, and we put them on a pedestal that we've got some really good people that do extremely well. And that's what people want to see, right? They want to work with talented people, you know. They want to go into a Manchester United and they want to play with the Beckham and the Scholes and the Cantona and see these key individuals. And that's what we've done is we've recruited particularly well. We've believed in people, and sometimes we've given people more time than maybe other companies would. But I think what I've learned over the years is I don't really focus on the competition. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't really pay much attention to them. I used to, and then it used to really upset me, and I used to be probably a bit jealous by it. Why is he doing that so well? Why aren't we doing that? And then, you know, and then you'd have some top performing brokers, they'd leave you. And then the top performing brokers, and you're like, my business is going to fall down because I've lost that top performing broker. But going back, it's never actually that bad. It always works out. This is it. And this is Simon's point, that you can lose your number one performing agent, but it's never that bad. It always works out.
I heard you guys saying something like that. You and Simon were on your mate's podcast, Stephen Sully. And there was a guy who was working for you who was one of the top performing guys. He made the company a lot of money, made himself a lot of money, but he didn't fit into what you guys, well, to your culture and to where you were going, and you got rid of him.
It's a difficult thing to do, right?
Was it?
From a financial point of view, it's bloody difficult to do because
you 3 Series BMs that week.
Well, no, it is. There's a whole, you know, it's a whole topic around that, the pluses and the negatives of getting rid of your top performers.
Yeah.
On one hand, you've got a top performer leaving. That's what other people aspire to do. The other individuals in the business don't look at his attitude necessarily. That would probably be further down. Let's say the 1 to 5. His attitude would be 5. They think he's quite funny. They think he's a bit of a Jack the Lad, and you know, not turning up to work, coming in hungover, getting complaints. The age, the demographic that we employ would probably find that quite amusing.
Yeah.
But the number one thing is they see the guy making lots of money within the company. And if they see that guy making money in the company, they're like, well, if he can do it, why can't I? But if you don't have top performers in your company, what is their aspire to do? And they all mix in the same circles in different companies, okay? So if you've got top performers in agent A, B, and we haven't got any top performers, they're like, well, there's no top performers here, Luke. Why am I going to stay working here? You're not offering what we need. And there's always excuses for people's underperformance, whatever it can be, and it's always directed at you. You're not giving me the good leads, you're not giving me aspirations, you're not giving me you know, the goal, whatever it may be. So when you've got a top performer, and he was a top performer, it's hard. But then the purpose of the company was, when we set out, and like I said, the story continues, it wasn't to be around for 3-4 years, Marcus, piss everyone off, sell them houses that we genuinely don't believe are a good investment. We don't believe in some developers. We don't sell some developers. We don't deal with some properties. And that is because the business needs to be going in 20 years. But if I sell those clients something today that they then get handed over in 3 years and it's not what they expected, what good is that to us? Because that then goes around. So it makes a huge difference to us. And that's why, you know, 2024, one of our biggest parts of the business is our customer experience. So we've got a team of customer experience now to find out, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And how can we improve it? Because it does make, and look, it's easy for me to sit here and say that, right? Because if you go everyone in real estate, we're always looking in the intentions of the client. We never want to make money. But genuinely, from the bottom of our heart, this is what we need to do, because we do not need to have problems where the business is going to have a bad name. We don't always do it right. We don't always, and I hold my hands up. But if we don't, there is always a director or an owner on the other end of the phone saying, okay, what have we done and how can we learn from it?
It's something that I've sort of almost had the privilege of learning more about you guys over the last few years, and there's a lot of thought that has gone into what you do. From what you spoke about there, the customer experience. Anyone who lives in Dubai, go and check out your offices. It's completely different. Before we started recording, we were comparing sort of your office in the Golden Diamond Park to a two-bit real estate company, should we say, in TCOM. No problem being in TCOM area, wherever. But the attention to detail that you guys have, which one of my first question here is, which one of the three of you brings that? Because it is OCD on another level, it's branding on another level, and it's this experience that you speak about I didn't know about it, Luke, to be honest, until we started sort of spending more time together, and you gave me almost the privilege of seeing it. I mean, I knew Better Homes because Linda Mahoney was a family friend, and we're still in touch and this and that. So I knew, but you guys, it's almost like going into a Mac store compared to going into an electrical store on Al Fahidi Street.
Yeah. It's very kind of you to say so. I suppose it would be a combination. Simon, without doubt, is the one that pushed the buttons and would have said, right, guys, there's an expansion. It was the old Just Kidding office. So that would have been the first kind of, that probably set us up on the map. It was about 10,000 square foot. It was a really expensive shop that sold prams in the Golden Diamond Park. It was retail. Not often do people go for retail because retail is more expensive than, something on a 20th or 30th floor. It worked for us as a location because it's centrally located, say, between downtown, Palm Marina, this kind of stuff. So agents can access. I think COVID changed it a lot, Marcus, and it was this kind of work from home, not work from home. Do we believe in it? Do we not believe in it? And if we're not necessarily believing it, and I know some people might not want to hear me say that, but for who we employ and the age bracket, we believe we need them in the office. And we need to monitor them, and we have managers and people looking over people, making sure KPIs are being met, etc. Therefore, what do those people want in order to bring them back to the office? They want to go somewhere quite cool, quite trendy. They want a coffee shop. They want all these things that you wouldn't have heard of 10 years ago, right? Yeah. And it's easy now. Everyone looks on, we see the Google offices, and we've all heard about the Google offices. And if we haven't heard about the Google offices, we heard about the Facebook offices. Yeah. Now, I'm not trying to compare ourselves with those, but real estate companies now are inviting their clients to their offices. And Dubai has been one of those places that, I'm going to buy something over there that's not built. There's a patch of sand. I've heard horror stories. I've seen people run off with money. I've seen estate agents. I've seen real estate developers. It's horror stories. So what can we do to better give them belief that it's okay? Yeah. Don't worry, we're here to hold your hands. We make a really smart office, which one, brings the employees together. It creates part of our culture. And when our employees bring Marcus Smith into the office, he's like, this is an experience. This is something I like. This is something I trust. So it's a lot of money that we pump into it. Yeah. It's a lot of money that I'm sure other companies would probably say, well, you're daft. Yeah. There's some companies that don't do it, and they have. Look, I'll be honest with you personally. It doesn't matter for me where I sit.
Really?
Honestly, I don't know.
Simon doesn't have an office.
Simon doesn't have an office. James doesn't have an office.
James doesn't have an office as well.
The three of us didn't have an office because we don't believe we're any different to anyone else in the company.
Right.
And I genuinely mean that.
Yeah.
So, I'm walking, and I'm not, I don't want people to, I'm not saying this for people to say, oh, I feel sorry for you, Luke, but I will pick things up off the floor if I see it. Yeah. I'm not one of these people that has to sit in a really glamorous office myself and bark commands. I'm no different I'm not
Tendy, mate.
I'm not a boss, I'm a colleague.
Yeah.
And that's when I even, I'm introducing someone messaged me on LinkedIn last night. And they said, I'm interested in buying. I said, I'll pass you on to my colleague.
Yeah.
It's not my employee, it's my colleague, that they work just as hard as I do and they're part of the team. So, the offices are superb. We have a nice coffee shop in there. We have a lot of things that probably cost us a lot of money, but it's part of our culture. It's part of it's who we are. Over the last 2 years, we've expanded the marketing department massively. So we have a marketing department of 30 people now. We're going to be we got some news that we'll be signing on a new office that would be taking up to like kind of double the size. We're currently at 380 employees. We'll be going up to closer to 500. But we have taken into consideration market conditions. Yeah. But we know we're safe. We do things right. And as I say to you earlier, if there's a storm, bring it on. We like to dance in the rain. And, we've seen a bit of rain. Like, we do like to do it.
That's huge, mate. And you spoke about that on the podcast that I mentioned before as well, that you're looking at doubling the business, which is, it's phenomenal what you guys have done, the way that you've done it, and to be still looking forward to that. When is it enough though? Like, will you go to 500 and then go to 1,000? Like, I know you said the vision, the story just keeps evolving. And I think that's beautiful, mate, because I think a lot of people are playing quite a finite game, where life is not, we don't know when it's going to end and we don't know what's going to happen. But when will...
I don't know,
what's your gut? When will you be happy?
You tell me, go home at 4:00, get out the office. Yeah. I go into my office at home on the weekend and I open my laptop. And I'll do it at 10 o'clock every Saturday morning. I'll take my son to rugby in the morning from 7:30 till 8:30. I'll go into my office at 10 o'clock. I'll open my laptop. I'll do my emails. I love it. I really do enjoy it. I like to respond. I like to do it. And until that day changes, I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. Does it? Of course, it's great the way it is, right? We're doing particularly well. We've got a really good company and we've got really good people working for us. People have approached us and tried to do buyouts, and there's been some big numbers that have been thrown at us, but we're young and we still love it. So why can't we keep going? There's a gap forming that we see in real estate between, because there's so many, and you will see so many of these drop off over the next coming years, without doubt. There's a lot of companies that deal with certain, just either buyers or sellers, whereas we don't. We do it the whole turnkey. So whether it's the holidays, the property management, the project management, we've opened now as well, maintenance, sales, leasing, finance. So we've got a lot of different sectors. So if that sector kind of has a little dip, well, don't worry, we'll just pick it up in that sector. So there's different avenues for us, and we're not completely reliant on a surge in necessarily buying and selling, although that's obviously what's happening at the moment. I don't know. Ask me in 8 years. I'll be 50 and maybe I'll have more time to get my runs in, which are turning red in training peaks at the moment. But I think while the hunger I can't switch off. Yeah, I can't, and that's my problem.
But you enjoy it.
I love it, and that's what I said to you. I was like, Marcus, well, should I go on holiday without my laptop and turn off? I don't know if you remember what you said to me. You said, "Fuck no, don't." Keep going. I actually enjoy it. So, and I do love it, and I love the people that work with me, and I love seeing them grow. I really get a buzz when they buy a house or an apartment and they get a title deed. And we've got a lot of people that have come with nothing, and they've gone on to do ridiculous things. And that's a lot to do with Dubai, and that's the vision and everything that's come with Dubai. But we've given them the stepping stone to do that, and that's what gives us the buzz. So look, of course people can say, well, look, you're doing particularly well financially and you can do what you want. And that's great. But I wouldn't change that for the world, but I wouldn't stop any time soon.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing as well. If it's making you happy, if you're excited, and if you understand when you're perhaps suffering stress-wise, or if your mental health's starting to suffer, and you've got a system in place for that, then you're in good shape. And I wrote an article a while back about sort of what will you do on Monday. You know, and I think everyone gets to a point, like you look at you guys, why didn't you sell? You have enough money forever, but then you would turn around and go, and then what will I do? You've got young children.
I get anxious on the weekend.
Yeah.
I get anxious on a Friday. And what does everyone else say to me that they can't? If I hear someone say to me, happy Friday, why are we happy? Because, we got 2 days off. I hate the weekend. I swear to God, on my kid's life, I hate the weekend. I want Monday to Friday. I want to be in at 7. I want to have my coffee, and I want to change people's lives.
Yeah.
And I mean that, honestly. I'm sure if my wife's listening to this, she's going to be, all right, cheers, Luke, you know. But and I don't mean it completely, but I really, I can't sit back. I can't not do anything. I can't go off to Mallorca for 2 weeks and not open my laptop and look at stuff. I wish I could. And
do you though, mate? Do you really like?
Part of me does, because I do think, am I going to kill myself?
Yeah. That's actually what I worry about for you.
Yeah. So part of me, but I can't change it, and therefore sometimes I just think if you're on that road, and I get lots of really good advice from really good people, one of you being included. But if I can't change it, and I've tried to change it, but I still really enjoy it, isn't it best to just keep going?
I mean, I think a lot of it's down to vision, isn't it? And you have a very clear vision for the company, which you guys are obviously super excited about.
Yeah.
And if that vision drives you, that vision drives decision. Chris Voss said it, you know, and if that vision drives you more than a vision of relaxing at the moment and being off for a certain number of months of the year, then it's not up to me or to anyone else to argue that. I think the biggest question is, you've mentioned anxiety. The biggest question is, what's that doing to you? And although and this is where stress versus anxiety, which one is the greater, and how interlinked actually are they? Like, I don't see you stressed out often. You're a relaxed guy, but we've spoken about it, and you've spoken about it here. Like, you get anxiety from things, which is also stress. So what's the potential fallout? It's difficult. It's difficult,
isn't it, mate? It is difficult, and I wish I knew the answer to it. I kind of think if Luke, the same Luke, was running this business 50 years ago, would he be thinking about the stress and the anxiety? Or is he thinking about it because every single podcast or every single book or every single person, it's like stress, anxiety, this, that. And I'm just trying to think, I don't want to pay too much attention to this and just get on with it. Yeah, I do, mate. I didn't sleep particularly well last night. I don't know what I was thinking about. And, I get in my routine, and whether it's the ice bath and the sauna or the, the chamomile tea or the stretch session or the yoga. And, I do these things, but then some things keep you up at night, but you put your tie on in the morning, you get through it. And that's why I just don't try to give it a huge amount of focus, because I want to be laser focused on the business, and I want to be, look, I do understand that I need to be in peak performance, and that's the reason at InnerFight, right, at 5 o'clock in the morning, to give me a good start before I go into the office, and I need to be in the best possible shape for my family, and hopefully I need to be here to bring up my kids and not be in a care home and, with an issue. I think at some stage I'll realise when that will be, Marcus. But 42, I'm in my peak. I should be playing centre for Wales.
You should be
and they'd be doing a lot better. I've got a lot to give.
And maybe it's increasing. Maybe I'm feeling an increase in it. You spend quite a lot of time on what I would call your own mental health, self-development. Yeah. You listen to a lot of podcasts. Yeah. mate, you're here 5:30, 3 or 4 days a week. This morning you're at the track.
Yeah.
I'd never forget when we took your guys for Show No Weakness and they did that skit in the desert of you, oh, good morning, I've just run a half marathon over here. And it was hilarious. But you do spend a lot of time on yourself.
Yeah.
Is that a conscious effort? Is it increasing? Did you get to a point where you're like, I love doing this work stuff, but I need to call it, if we want, create a balance, or is it just been, I mean, I know you've done half Ironmans and full Ironmans. Sorry, that was originally why we got to know each other, which is
I've entered a few races that I haven't completed as well.
But you've got a big desire for ongoing self-learning and growth.
Yeah, I have, and I think I've spoken to you, and you always, well, what's the why? And sometimes I don't know the why myself, and I remember being away once, and you sent me this long email about the why, and I was trying to figure out what is the why. I don't know the why, and again, I try not to now overthink things too much. I do try and, stress management. I just spent a week in Valencia, a wellness clinic, trying to deal with stress. But then I realized when I was there that, geez, there's a lot of people in a lot worse situation than me, that made me feel that was good enough in itself. I can leave. I saw some people, and I mean that in the nicest way to these people. But if on a scale of 1 to 10, Luke's a 2. If I saw some of the other people, right? So that we know that in the morning, if we get out and we see first sunlight and we do some exercise and we mix with some like-minded, and that's what I'm about now. I don't have many friends, Marcus, and I don't think we should all be scared of saying that. And I think it's like, we don't like to do things, we don't like to look stupid in front of other people, right? We like to look popular, but I don't have many friends. I probably have friends on one hand, 2 hands most, that I could say are real good friends. But when you come in the morning and you're mixing with like-minded people that just want to start the day off, it's bloody good, right? Good, yeah. What can I do? I can stay in bed. And so, there's definitely been a conscious effort. I always knew that, and again, I think my dad had a bit of it plays on my head that he put on weight. And I don't know at what stage he put on weight, but that's not what I want to do, I want to go to my kids' school race.
And win sports day.
I want to win it. And I don't want to be overweight. And I do feel once you get to 40, these things can change. And you've got to keep them.
Nothing changes, mate. I'm 46 this year.
Look at you, mate, as well. Yeah. My wife tells me about you. Yeah, she said, why don't I look like you? And I'm like, well, we've got different jobs. But of course it has a massive part to play, doesn't it? And I wouldn't change it for the world. And I think although I'm probably not the one that, strikes out the 5, 6, 7 days a week, I try to balance it. But the work for me is the biggest issue. If I feel I'm quite uncommon to a lot of people, whereas I think that the enjoyment, the satisfaction, the health would probably come number 1. And I wish it was for me, but it's not. Business is not. I don't like to say it, but business for me, and I know it's stupid, but business is number 1 and then it's health. And I need to change it, and I'm sure I will. But if I can just do that 1-2 hours a day, let's see where we are.
It's an interesting one because I absolutely see both sides of the story.
Yeah.
And the more people I speak to, whether it's on the show or just chats with clients and the corporate work that we do, like, I understand it. And maybe it is that programming. Maybe it was, those 15 years from the BMW to when you actually got to Dubai and the countless hours and, people from the pub knocking on the window. And maybe that's the subconscious programming. And you are enjoying it, mate.
Yeah.
So who's to tell you, like,
I'm obsessed with it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I was saying a story to when I went to this wellness clinic and I was talking to this stress management doctor, and I probably sound a lot worse than I am. So for the listeners, I'm not actually that bad.
We'll use all of these bits for the outtakes.
this
Dubai real estate
going to be in a nut
guru
house
in absolute turmoil.
But I was saying to this doctor, and I was explaining that it was a Tuesday. I was flying on the Friday, and I think it was the Tuesday or Thursday, something like that. And I needed to get a haircut. Bearing in mind, I own the company, and so in theory, I'm the boss. The only hair appointment I could get was at 4:30.
Right.
Okay. Now, for me to leave that office at 4:30 in front of my colleagues was a really, really challenging thing to do. I don't know why. I do not know what has programmed me for the last 30, 40 years in order to be shy to walk out of my office at 4:30. But I picked up my phone, I pretended I was on the phone to someone, and I walked out. And I went for my haircut. And when I went for my haircut, I felt really, really guilty. I don't know whether it was guilty because what if someone needs me? What if someone's got a problem that they need to discuss with me? What about if it's that Marcus email that I should have replied to, that I haven't replied to, and I don't want to delay it? A bit of OC, I don't know what it is. And then it comes down to, well, let's try and deal with it. What is the problem? And then I'm like, well, is it a problem? This is who you are. Just carry on with it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not killing anyone. I just feel really guilty for leaving my office at 4:30.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I don't know why it is. I don't know whether it comes back to going back and you saw your grandparents coming in at 7 o'clock. The food's ready. They're like tired. They've been working all day. My dad was in a pub working all hours of the evening into the early hours of the morning. And it felt that I just feel that if you work hard, certainly in real estate, that you usually get the results. Yeah. You know, we got brickies. They're not the bright. They're probably less bright than I am, and that's saying something. But some of these brickies come out here, but they've got really good work ethic, and they grind, they hustle, phone. Don't take rejection. They don't take things personally. They get told to get stuffed. They pick up again. They're like, you know, you can keep knocking down the door, but they keep going. And that's what I think about the resilience and the grit and the determination. But ultimately, if someone's got hard work in real estate, I don't know what it's like in other business because I don't know them. But in real estate, usually that's what the secret to success is.
I think it goes across pretty much every industry. Yeah. I don't think there's anything. And I mean, that it actually circles quite nicely into what you guys have done. One of your, I guess it would be an internal value at Haus & Haus is we work in work. And that's like, I think it's number one, isn't it?
It is.
Like, and that's drilled the whole time. We come into this place and we discussed it before. We've made it nice for you.
Yeah.
But when we're here, we're here to work.
Of course, right?
It's culture that you've created. Have you always been like sharp on culture and environment?
No.
Really?
No. I don't think. I think it's just the culture leads. The culture is. While I'm here with you now, my office is open.
Yeah.
My culture is still there, and it's been led from how people do work in the business when I'm not there, the way they see me. So we work in workers. Well, that's really cheap, Luke, if you go into work and you do nothing all day.
Yeah.
So we've got to lead by example because that's what it's saying to subconsciously people see it, right? People do know, well, Luke, you're the boss, but why are you here every hour? Well, you're an idiot. Why do you need to do it? But subconsciously it's sending a message, you know? So did we go out with some big aim? I think we had 50 values. Okay. And we had a consultant into the business about 5 years ago, and he said, what are your values? We said, we've got 50. They're on the wall outside there.
No way.
And he said to me, can you give me one of them? We're like, no. But it looks really good on the wall when people walk in. And he's like, no, you don't know them. Your employees don't know them. So what to do? So we came up with 5, and we work in work as one of them. So if you come into, and that's, okay, let's go back. I'm not saying everyone needs to go in at 7 and finish at 7. But when you come in and we've got some really good people, and there's one lady for example, in our office, she comes in for 4 hours a day. She will do more in 4 hours than I think some others will do in 9 hours. And for me, that is the value. We work in work. We're not faffing around, and then we haven't got weakness, and we're not going to then start going to our line manager or whoever it is in a week's time for our performance review and say, you know what? I'm not having success. Okay, well, let's drill it down. Why aren't you having success? Okay, well, when you come here, what do you do? Well, I occupy myself on Instagram, and then when I finish Instagram, I go out and vape. And when I finish with vape, I go and get myself a coffee. And then I really get nervous about making a phone call. And then once that client doesn't answer the phone, I then take another 20 minutes to make another call. You're like, well, you're not working in work.
Yeah.
Is this job actually for you? And, you know, sometimes it's not. Yeah. Sometimes it's not. But we all tend to find reasons for our lack of performance, right? It's like the green on training peaks, right? Yeah. Yeah. If I can't do it, how can I make it green without not doing it? What cheats are there? Everyone has them.
I can't share those answers on this public platform, mate. How do you think culture is big in your office, and you can see it, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Like when I walk in, I can feel it, and it's powerful. And I don't know if you've got CCTV and you just want to hold me at reception, but every time I go in, within a few minutes, I either see you, James, or Simon, and there's this energy and there's this greeting, and it's very powerful, mate. Yeah. You're there the whole time. You have one lady that works 4 hours a day. You have 370 others that are all different.
Yeah.
Some people can work 4 hours a day. Some people need to Instagram, vape, coffee, whatever, before they get to it. How on that scale do you, because you three are similar, you're there 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're hard workers. How do you manage the difference in such a big operation now? How do you manage different people?
We've got some really good people that have come just below us. So when you talk about kind of the Charlie who also comes to the gym, you've got Tom Paulson, you've got a selection of, let's say, line managers that are basically, let's say each line manager, we talk about the 370, let's say each line manager could be looking at 30 people. Right. Over the course of the week, they're interviewing. They're not necessarily interviewing those people, but they're keeping an eye on things, right? They're seeing the way they talk. They're seeing the way they slouch. They see the way we've got to be observant of what's going on. And not everyone's in a good place, okay? And there will always be a reason, and maybe something's going on in their personal life, and then you have a sit down and a chat with them. But I think we've employed, I think, extremely good people who are a bit obsessed like we are for results. And I think it's like I say, Marcus, I felt guilty going for that haircut, but maybe someone needs help, okay? And I think we're really good at identifying if someone does need help. And I don't need to interview if we have someone in the business and let's say we're going to employ a sales director. I don't need to interview people. And I don't need to interview people because I'm always interviewing them. And I'm not necessarily taking them to the room and ask them a load of questions, but I'm just having a chat with them and a coffee. For me, that's an interview. It's a friendly interview, but I'm finding out what's going on. Yeah. So when you've got 10, 15 different line managers in the business constantly, we go back to that thing. We don't have offices. Yeah. There's a reason we don't have offices, because I don't want to be isolated in a room with a closed door policy where I'm not speaking to individuals. So I'm finding out, and then the cultures revolve around that, because look, this guy's not performing. I've heard a few things about them. They're giving really bad vibes to newbies, new people coming into the business. I'm going to pull them up on it. So we had a scenario this week where a new person had started in the business, and we'd hit a new person started in 370 to be this close. It's like we've got intelligence in the office. Okay, so we've got people that tell us stuff. Newbie started. It's difficult. Newbie coming in, They've got to feel warm. They've got to feel welcome. And if you've got 12 line managers making them feel welcome, that's great. But 12 out of 370 is not a good percentage. So you need all that other workforce to make them feel warm, to comfortable. But in the sales environment, it's competition. That newbie's going to be competition.
Yeah.
So I shake your hand, I'll smile at you, but don't ask me for any help. This is how 10 to you find a sales floor, because you're gonna affect my income.
Yeah.
Because there's only so many houses and there's only so many clients, and you're gonna have some, and I need some, and he needs some, and that's so the enforcers and the things. So the newbies come in, and we understand that the newbie will ask questions and want to know stuff, and someone who is experienced in the team has responded in a way that we would not like them to respond. Right. Nothing, not fighting and nothing over dramatic, but not a house and house way to respond to someone. So yesterday we called them out on it. And we said to the person, we believe it's happened over WhatsApp. Can you show us your phone? And they said, yeah, if you've got nothing to hide, I just want to see the messages between you and this person. There's two sides to every story. Can we just see it? And we deal with it. But this is constantly going. As someone could be like, geez, I'm not going to that firm. They're going to want to look at my things. But we create an environment that is nice for people. It doesn't matter whether you've been there one day or 10 years. Just because you've been there 10 years, it doesn't mean you speak to people not in the correct way. So it's so many things. It's the enforcers telling us stuff. We've always got our ears on the ground. We're always watching. We're getting rid of top performers because they're not the right person. There's a combination of, I don't know, we could sit down and we could probably, with your graphs that I see on the whiteboard, we could probably go over how many things that we're constantly doing. We're not looking at CCTV, but we're just always, I think we observe particularly well.
Yeah, I agree.
And we have to do that. Because otherwise we're not going to be a business in 5 years, because we're going to get really bad reviews and we're not going to do things correctly. So we've got to keep observing, right?
And for some people that would sound, what you've said over the last sort of couple of minutes there, mate, some people that would sound quite invasive. Some people would be like, well, why should I show someone my phone? But I'm always of the opinion that you're very open book.
They don't have to. I can't enforce them to show me a phone.
You can't, mate.
But if you don't show me your phone, and I've heard this issue, what are you trying to hide?
What are you hiding?
The difference, I think, Marcus, on a lot of them is we have good relationships with these people. So the way it comes across, and the way I could say it over this, was obviously to make it quite short and concise. But this isn't a going into an office and saying within 30 seconds, I need to see your phone, you've annoyed someone. It is more of a, let's sit down, let's have a coffee. I understand this. Would you mind giving me your point of view? If you haven't got any, let's have a look at this.
Yeah.
So, and we're friends, we're colleagues, we're not boss and employee, like I said to you.
In the nicest possible way as well, and that's how I often think of us here. Like, we're a football team, or we're a rugby team, or if you want to be with the ladies, you could be ladies football, netball, whatever. We're a team, and you guys are so clear about the way you're going to operate. And if you're on the bus, then it's going forward like this, and it's the same as a game of football or rugby. We need to know what the rules are, and then we all need to just fill in and do our job. And if you're not, then that's fine as well. No one has to stay.
They don't, and that's it.
You can leave if you...
They do leave. We can't keep everyone. I wish we could keep everyone, but we don't for various reasons. And the grass isn't always greener. Yeah. The amount of people that have left me.
Do you let them come back?
Tom Paulson.
Did he leave?
He left.
Did he?
He left. He said he's got another job. I can't remember. I think he was doing finance. He left. But, I respect it more than anything, because he phoned me up. He said, Luke, it's not worked out. Can I have a chat?
No way.
I was like, yeah, of course. But what is better, Marcus? Is it the person that leaves but realises they've made a mistake and makes the call to come back? Or is it better for the person that leaves to have the broad shoulders and say, you know what? I'm not going back to them. Even if I wanted to, I'm not going to give them the I didn't have satisfaction from Tom not succeeding in another job. No. I had satisfaction saying, look, the door's open. You're a really good person. I've got loads of respect for you, and I can see that you can develop with us. And then look what's happened. Tom left, he came back, and now he's our sales director.
Unbelievable.
So I suppose it's easier said than done. What would I do in that scenario? Would I want to go with my tail between my legs and be like, it's not worked out, can I come back? People do, some people don't. But the grass isn't always greener, is it?
No, not really, mate. And I think it's more deep rooted, and we speak about this a lot when we chat. There's a lot of deep rooted personality traits in people that you guys are doing the best to accommodate and to understand, and you don't treat everyone exactly the same. Like, there's not many companies where the 3 owners work all around the office, don't really have an office, are available pretty much. I know I'm not saying that you talk to people the whole day, mate, because I know you're busy with your work anyway. But I mean, you're pretty available as a 3, and if I can't get you, I can get Simon.
Yeah. Well, James is particularly good at that, right?
Yeah.
James, I think until we got to maybe 250, 300, every single day he would go and see every single member of staff.
It's mental.
And then he won't cut the conversation short. So he lets it roll. So if you want to speak to James for 20 minutes, he has something that I don't have, and he can just listen and listen and listen and find out what you had for dinner last night and what restaurant you went to and how was the service. And he can be, you've got my attention, and I'm not listening to what's going on next to you, and I'm not listening to what's going on behind me. You've got my attention. And he gave that to everyone. Now, as the business has grown, I think it's probably come down to twice a week, but he does get around at least once a week. Yeah. So you've got that. It is difficult. It's trying to know everyone's name. It's trying to understand, and give everyone time of day and value. It's something that I feel sometimes a bit ashamed of, because sometimes there are people coming and going. You're like, are they here with us, or are they with the office upstairs, right?
That's going to get harder as we go to 500.
It does, and I suppose there's got to be a way that I've got to learn to deal with that and somehow manage it, and try and get around. Okay, we always take on people on the first Monday of every month, right. So it's catching them on the first Monday of every month and seeing how they are, what's going on, getting their name, listening to their name, repeating their name.
Name badges?
We don't do name badges, but again, we've talked about it, and this is something I was thinking when you were mentioning that we don't want to go corporate. We don't want to be the corporate. We want, it's cliche, but we want colleagues, friends, family. This is house and house. We don't want to be the corporates. We don't. I had the HR yesterday about policies and like what the Ramadan. What are we doing over the hours and the public holidays and this and this and this? What do people want to do?
Yeah.
What do they want? Yeah. Let's give them what they want. So, you know what Simon said to me on Monday? Unlimited holidays. I'm like, come on, mate. Just because it worked for Richard Branson doesn't mean it's going to work for House and House. He's like, why not? Yeah. It's proven that people are going to take less holiday. Give them unlimited holidays, they'll take less. Yeah. I'm like, okay, so this is the difference between Simon and I and Jay. James kind of literally fell off the chair. I was a bit like nearly falling off the chair, and Simon's like, so there's discussions that happen constantly.
I mean, it is interesting, isn't it, that concept, especially in your business, because we actually have it here with the coaches.
Yeah.
We don't. They have to fill up a leave. In the leave software, they have to fill it up so that we know that they're not going to be here. I think that's just like useful for us, especially if we're putting someone on a class.
Yeah.
But we never. I think one of the coaches last year, when we went through, it spits out a report at the end of the year, and it's like this employee's had 72 leave days.
But if the 72 leave days of leave and they are not meeting your.
But that's what I was going to say, mate. They're one of the top performing coaches.
Okay, but you reverse it. What about if they're not top performing?
They wouldn't be here.
And you would make that decision early
I wouldn't,
on?
But we never make it based on the leave. But I guess it's probably similar to what you guys, are you happy with a guy making one sale a year on a 3 million dirham house? If you're happy to keep that guy in the business, then you keep him in the business. But if not, the numbers speak for themselves, I think.
Yeah, I think what we've realised is that it's not just, we've got 20% of our performers doing 80% of the business, right? Yeah. And we have got that that 20%, but we do understand as well that not everyone's a top performer, but they're really good for the culture.
Yeah.
You know, they bring something else to the table.
100%.
They've got a ridiculous amount of knowledge. They're a really nice person. They give someone a bit of a drive, but they're not probably a really good salesperson. But they get by doing maybe some of them 6 sales a year, 7 sales a year. But it's the extra things. Now, as a company, we understand that if someone has a desk, and a desk involves a computer, a landline, a visa, health insurance, we know what that desk needs to bring us in.
Yeah.
And therefore, we know that we can have a certain amount of people that actually lose us money, but they help our culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, we go back to that.
That also goes back to what we were saying about the culture that you want. Yeah. Like, you understand that not everyone needs to sell 100 houses a year or however many they can sell. And we have similar conversations here as well with personal trainers. They sign a contract of so many KPIs, of so many PTs as their KPI. And we know after about 6 months whether they're going to do it. Yeah. And then we'll sit down, and sometimes it's a tough conversation for them. I don't ever find it a hard conversation, because it's like, we'll sit down and I'll say, Luke, it's like obvious what you want. Like, let's not bullshit each other. The number was this on your contract. You're doing this. Are you able to do maybe a little bit more if the business needs a little bit more? And we crack on. You're a good person. Every time you coach, you're good for the culture, exactly what you're saying. And we're okay to move things around. But again, I think sometimes that's a conversation that management and also staff, if you look at it like that, are a little bit shy to have it.
It's not easy, is it?
It's not, because it's not.
People take it personally, Marcus, I think a lot of the time, right? You know, it's a personal thing. And I think you've got to be, I'm not saying I'm good at it, but some people really take it personally. What do you mean I'm not performing? And it's amazing. Some people are pretty deluded, right? Aren't they? Right? You're not performing. What do you mean? Like, we've got screens in the office that show. You've seen it, right?
It's horrible.
There's no hiding place.
I'm like, how can the first time I went into your office, I'm like, how can this brand be so strong? How can it have such good people, such good culture when it has these screens up?
It's got everything showing live data, and we've now got a data analyst working in the company. Wow. And he used to be a data analyst for a pharmaceutical company. So he is into his numbers. Now, we've got lifetime reports on everything, going from our average age, nationality, to the figures earned by that person by the second. Wow. You can present all the case studies to an individual, but some people really don't get it, and they can be completely deluded and be like, I'm not doing that bad. And you're like, well, what do you mean? You're in the bottom, you're 5, and you know there's 300 and odd people, or 250 salespeople or leasing people, or blah blah blah. It's difficult with some people because they just don't get it, and you always want to give sometimes the benefit of the doubt, and sometimes people don't take to it as quickly as others. Some people, it could be they could start, I'm sure you see it in coaching, right? You might get an athlete comes in really good, but then, someone that might be there for the longer journey that takes on at a later stage, or so. Everything depends on what's going on externally in their life as well. Yeah. But it is brutal. I'm surprised that some people stay in it as long as they do when they're not getting results.
Yeah. Mate, we've taken plenty of your time. Yeah. It's we could actually keep this going for hours, and then I was thinking before we should then interview James and hear his side of the story, and then interview Simon and then bring you all together. We could almost do a whole series, but mate, I want to appreciate you. It's what you've shared with us today. Also, for folks that are listening, a lot of real estate company owners probably wouldn't share in the detail that you've shared, and that's probably why we've always had a nice relationship, because we're all very transparent with things. But
it's something we've talked about as a company as well, Mark. We spent ridiculous amounts on marketing and these guides and even internal policies. What happens if someone leaves us and they take our policies? Who cares? Honestly, what should I do? Get a bit more anxious about that and wake up tonight about it? who cares? It's like, what can they do? They can rip it off. How many people are trying to copy InnerFight? Probably lots, but what can you do about it?
It's very flattering.
What can you do about it? And that's why I think at the moment that we spend so much on all these different marketing things and, you know, these things that we think, oh, like, we're going to be a step ahead, but who cares? And I think that's probably what I've tried to develop myself. It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Just paddle your own boat. Do the best you can. Onwards.
It's awesome. Luke,
cheers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
mate.
it.
Cheers.